Hi everyone, I'm Nick, the artist and creator behind Freakin' Twisted. In this video I will walk you through how to create this pendant and hopefully pass on some hints and tips along the way which I hope you'll find useful. I'm looking forward to creating more content and sharing my skills with the community. Let's go!
So, a quick run through of materials and tools that we'll use to make this piece. I've got a nice little selection of pliers here. We've got chain nose, bent nose, flush cutters. I've got some nice flat nose here. I tend to use these for just gripping hold of things if things need a little bit more oomph to get into place. They've got no serrated edges or anything for damaging wire, and nylon jaws for straightening out any pieces of wire as we go along. We've got our focal stone. This is a lovely piece of mookaite. We've got some thinner gauges of weaving wire here, which I put onto these little bobbins. It makes handling the wire so much easier and stops things getting tangled. I've got 0.4 and 0.3. The 0.4 I tend to use for attaching beads because it's just a little bit thicker, and then when you're winding things around and doing your polishing at the end, will stop things from work hardening and snapping off. And I've got the 0.3, which I tend to use for the weaving detailing. Now, although it being a smaller gauge will take slightly longer to work up, for me I just prefer that finer detailing, and that's really good for getting into tiny spaces. I've got a selection of little beads here. I tend to put them in this little lid here to try and stop them from escaping and getting away from you. I've got a selection of sizes which we'd probably end up using today. I've got 3mm, 2mm and little tiny rice shaped ones. I pop them in there just in case we end up using them. We'll see as we go along. I've got 0.6mm wire. I use this for binding bales when I do the bound bales. Sometimes I don't. It's just a little bit thicker, keeps things nice and strong for you. I believe this is 1.2. I tend to use for frames, which is what we'll be doing with this piece, creating a frame and attaching our components. Any sizes from 1.2 to 1.5, sometimes even 2mm. I'll go for the larger gauges because they make a good sturdy base for your piece. And especially when hammered. The worst thing that can happen is when you use something that's too thin and you start attaching your components and then your frame starts buckling and getting out of shape, and it's really frustrating and just doesn't look good. If you're wondering why this looks a bit strange, and I've got it in this little bundle, I was very, very kindly donated a huge stash of old electrical cables from an old neighbour before she moved, and so I've been harvesting my larger gauges from that electrical cable, annealing it and then pickling it and just storing it in these little bunches. Really handy for projects. Probably do a video on that later, help you guys out with that. We'll be using 1mm and 0.7 also, so hopefully I've covered everything there. Let's get going.
Okay, so let's start making the frame. Now I've measured out approximately 28 centimeters of my thicker gauge here. Now the way I've determined that length is I've taken the focal stone and the way I tend to do it is lay it in the middle and rotate your stone one halfway, and then I leave about 3 centimeters approximately for the bail and then a little bit extra for doing front detailing. As you fold the bail over, then you'll already have some wires prepared to lay down on the front, and then once you've put that in the middle, obviously double that up for doing the other side. This is where I take my flat nose pliers, get a good grip and just straighten my wire out. Now of course if you've already bought ready processed wire that's coming off the reel, then you will don't need to do this, you can skip this stage, and that will be just about right. So I will roughly put my stone in the middle and just start to bend these wires around. I find it a bit easier to work one side at a time and just get it to hug the stone. So you've got a basic shape like that. Now bear in mind, when you hammer wire, it does stretch. So you kind of want to make the frame fit fairly snugly around the stone, but leave a little bit of room, because then that will give you plenty of space for us to start poking our components on later on and adding weaves, etc. So we just roughly get that in around the top. This bit's always a little bit tricky, so it's somewhere about there. And then if you look at your frame, sometimes you get these odd little bends that sneak in, so unless your stone actually has that, then try and just nip in there and straighten those up. Again, flat nose for that job. That side's not too bad. Hit back over your focal stone. So, not bad. And I think what we'll do, try and make it just a little tighter, and there we will bend our bow at the top. So for that I shall use my chain nose, and I'll just go in here on the inside of the frame. And bear in mind, when you bend it, you have to take into account the thickness of the gauge of your wire, which will influence the overall size of your opening at the top. You'll see what I mean in a sec. So there, take it in the same place there and bend that one up. Right, it's all look a bit skew with, don't worry about that. All of that, straighten bail out up top. Guess who didn't measure the middle? Doesn't matter. And should get you roughly somewhere where you need to be. Pop the stone in. How's it looking? Not too bad. Top of here just needs straightening a little bit. Now, as you can see here, try zooming in for you if I can. There we go. I was just a little bit off measuring the top. That's not a problem. You can go in for a second go and readjust. If I can just get a little pointer and show you what I mean. Pen's got itself tangled up on a bit of wire. There we go. These two bends here don't quite align. Now, I try and correct these as you go, because you'll always find if you leave it, I'll end up creating problems later with things not lining up. So it's best to be fussy if you can and get those straight. So you can go in with flat nose, zoom back out again for a second go around, straighten that one up. A bit tricky on camera, I'll just have a little peek. There we go, let's try that. I think that's going to be in a much better place. There we go. Straighten that one up. The same this side. There we are. Now, I'll probably take a bit longer than most on that because I don't always get it right first time. And that's where you don't need to worry. If it doesn't go right first time, it's wire. You can manipulate it, you can do it again. As long as you don't do it so many times that you end up work hardening it and snapping, then even then you can always cut yourself a fresh piece. So don't get too wound up over that. And that's looking fairly good. So this is where the first hammering bit comes in. Try and move all my gear. So for anybody that hasn't hammered before, I've got a sandbag and a steel block. Hammers, let's talk hammers very briefly. I'll try to do another video on that sometime for you. Now, you want to have something that is got a slightly convex face to the actual, let me move that to one side again, to the hammering face. The reason being, if it's not, you're going to get dings and snags in your wire. It's something that's got a slightly rounded profile on the actual hammer face there. Now, this one isn't a specific jewellery hammer. This is actually just from a hardware store. and my partner just ground it down so it's slightly convex with a rounded edge, and it works really well. I had one before, I don't think I've got it to hand actually to show you. No, I used to have, hang on, here we go. And this was just another one. This was my absolute go-to when I very first started, worked really well. However, I found that after a while, because it hadn't been hardened, it was really soft, and the face of the hammer was getting dings in it, and it was putting those marks then on my wire, which was really frustrating. We used to grind it down and resurface, and that works. But occasionally, if you do find that happens, you just need to get a different hammer that's got a hardened head to it. So that's fine. So grab your steel block and try and make sure your sandbag is level, because sometimes if it hasn't, that will affect your hammering. Now as the wire stretches, it can sort of distort, so try if you can hold it in place. And with copper, you don't want to strike too hard because it is a soft metal. Just gentle taps and manipulate it and flatten it out and flare the edges where you want it. Now with this, we want the whole frame flared out because we'll likely use the whole of the frame to place our components. So we want it all nice and strong. And with it also, the advantage being flattened, it means that when we're binding on wires, they will grip so much better to a sort of a rectangular as opposed to a round surface where things can spin. So keep your hammer nice and flat. Just gradually start to hammer it out. And hopefully I'll edit out the hammering enough so it doesn't startle all your folks that might be wearing headphones. Spin around again. See, we're starting to get a nice little edge on it now. I'll take it a bit further. And don't worry, if you do start to get like little slightly uneven areas as you hammer, you can gently go around with your hammer and you can smooth those out. Right, I think we're somewhere near now. I can see that that has distorted in shape a little bit. So we'll just move all this out of the way. Come back in. And although it has been hammered, you can manipulate it a little bit. Take it back to where you need it to be. Okay. Just generally back to where it should go. It's not far off. A little bit of a kink there. So right, let's have a little look, see how that looks. I think that'll work all right. Good, right, okay. I might just take this side in a little bit, it's a bit more booty. There, it's probably better. Yeah, it's more equal. Cool, right. The next part, if I put our focal stone to one side there so it doesn't get damaged, we'll take in our 0.6. Now I don't have any specific length for this, it's just bind it until you get to the right length. So I tend to start off just roughly putting it where you need it, tighten it up, little chain nose there, give it a little squeeze, squash it into place, push it where you need it to go, and then rotate your frame around. Now don't worry if it's not lying flat, because we can adjust that with the pliers in a sec. There we go. Right. This one going this way. Copper binding stretch for you a little bit. Keep it push as you go, so if you try and do that at the end, it'll just be a nightmare. Wind, wind, wind. Squeeze. More winding. Of course, if you prefer to cut off a length, then feel free to do so. Now, I usually take my binding for bales anywhere between 2.5 and 3 centimeters. So we'll just give that a little check in a second. See where we're at. So we're just at 2. Let's keep going. Doesn't have to be exact, just I find that gives it enough length for you to be able to wrap it round either a dowel or pliers to be able to create the bail. It was nice and snug. There we are, that'll do. So that is now at just under 3 centimeters. That'll be absolutely fine. So when you cut it, you're going to need to cut it the same way as when you started binding on. So I'm just going to unwrap that to the front to trim that just there. Give that a little squeeze to the front there, and it'll be nicely tucked away that as we bring this bail forward, it'll be covered, there'll be no sharp edges. Trim that one off too. Just give that a little squeeze over as well. Okay. There we are. Now, I also like to, at this stage, just grab the hammer. I never used to, but I found it helps. Give this little hammer down to straighten things out. Doesn't need to be much. And there we are. We've got our frame ready to go. Pop our stone in, bail ready to go. We'll join in the next session just to start working on these top wires and how we might shape them to bring them down over in front of our focal piece. So we'll be working on what to do next with these top wires for our front detailing, and also at this stage we need to put some support straps / bars across the back that our stone will sit on top, so then it'll be able to sit on the frame without falling through to the other side. First off though, where I didn't measure the middle of my wire, I'm just going to trim these to the same length because that's just really annoying. There we go. So let's work on the support bars. I know we said we do the top, but we'll do the support bars because then we won't struggle to get to those after we've wound the bail over the top. So for the support bars on the back, I use 1mm wire. Now you can put as many of these in as you like. The advantage of putting more support bars in means you've got more points to attach components. So we'll pop a few in, see how we go. So I've got the 1mm wire for this. Now all you need to do is lay your wire across your frame, and you want to be using, trimming it to about there, so you've got enough to do a wrap around and secure. So we'll chop off a piece at a time. Make sure it's nice and straight. Let's find the flat nose. Just give it a little straighten out because it tends to curve a little bit. Let's come off the reel. Straighten it out a little bit, best you can. You can do this after it's been hammered as well. There we go. And just now mind your fingers with these because your little bits of wire are shorter. Your fingers are obviously closer to the hammer. I found that out many times. Just go steady. So it's just flat enough for your stone to sit on. You see that nice little, almost like a facet. So I'll tell you what, while we're here, rather than dragging the block in and out of the frame, I'll just cut off a few pieces. And you can attach those to our frame. If I've cut too many, it doesn't matter. So we'll put one there. See if we can hammer them all in one go, so it'll be a little bit quicker. Ouch. I hope you're all proud of me. I managed not to say bad words. Oh, right, that should be enough. Oh, and a little note on hammering. Now, you may or may not find this interesting. I should have prepared this a bit earlier. But I found, a while into my hammering journey, that I was starting to get quite bad tinnitus. So my way of getting around that was to use these little foam earplugs. Now I'm not using them today because I have to keep taking them in and out. But all they are these little plugs. Pop those in and out, and it makes the world of difference to your hammering game. Stops you from getting tinnitus and horrible things happening to your ears. There is also another type. You can get the ones that are on the frame. Okay, it's handy. I found though that with the frame being attached to the buds in your ears, when the frame is moving around, the noise was travelling down that frame and actually getting, when you took them in and out, quite loud and uncomfortable. So I just go for the little individual ones and use those for a bit of ear protection. Right, that was just a little side note for you. Okay, so all we need to do to attach these, now because we've got the hammered side and the side that was on the block, that one's not too bad. I'm trying to show you one for an example. Yeah, okay, so as we have got here, just going to bring the camera in there to show you. This is where I was striking it with the hammer. You may or may not be able to see, there's a few marks on there. And then the side that was against the block is nice and flush and clean. So I will put the flush clean side facing out of the back of the frame. There's really nothing, but if you want to be extra fussy and tidy, turn it at a right angle and just start to wrap it around your frame. And however you find that easiest, I tend to just there we are. Isn't it funny when you're working normally and you're not showing people, you just do things without realising, you don't really take note how you do it. Squeeze it on first, like that. And then take it around, give it a little squeeze at that stage. Around, turn it over. Down there. And you can bring it back over the front. Give it a little trim. Sometimes, again, this is where I use my larger flat nose pliers. There, that's the first side bound down. So I will just do that on the other side. Try and get it to line up straight, because then it will look nice and tidy on the reverse. And also, when you wrap it around, make sure you wrap it the same side of the wire that you have done on the other side. So we need to bring this tail end in through this side. So wrap around. Because I've not done that a few times before, and it's not the end of the world. It's really annoying. And it can also mean if you're trying to do a symmetrical piece, if you have your tails going alternate side of your wires, it means you don't always end up with the same space to work with. So from that point of view, it could be a deal breaker. There we go. So we've got one strap on the back. Now if you find, like mine, it's a little bit wonky, you can adjust it to get it to even out. And I managed to find a really small one of these the other day. I wasn't going to use it for my backdrop because it's quite busy. But if you lay, these are one of these self-healing craft cutting mats. If you lay your frame on it, it means you can get your symmetry and measurements right. So there we go, we can see here that our frame sits nice and equal, both sides, or strap rather. So what I might do now is use a Sharpie, makes it a bit easier rather than trying to guess. The next strap, move it so that, there we go, and you just put a little mark, there you go, where both of those lines are the same, and we'll do one there, and I'll do a little one at the top, because that's always handy. You never know if you've got a bead to tie off or a small component. So that now means that we have, I'll move it to the centre for you, all those marks lined up, and when we put our straps on the back, they're all going to be nice and level. Put that away, take this busy board away to one side, grab some more flattened pieces. So what I'll do before I go to put this one on, I'll just put a right angle edge on there. That. I'll finish this one off and then meet you back when I finished up the others. That's a bit boring otherwise. Okay. Trim that down. And although this will be tucked away underneath our components, another little tip, these cut ends can be quite sharp. And you can actually deburr them using the jaws of your plier. And just like that. And if you just gently squeeze and rotate your pliers, you can do this with copper, it just takes that really sharp edge off. Even if it's just to protect yourself while you're working. There we are. So I'll meet you back in a minute once I finish putting on all the straps, and then we'll do the next stage. So there we are. back now with the finished strapped frame. Because we've had our cut ends finished on effectively what is the front, it means that everything will be nice and smooth for the wearer and not catch on their clothing or scratch people. So this means now that we can put our focal stone in the front there. It'll just fit in nicely and snug. Stop it from popping out the back. So the next job now is designing and shaping these bail wires so that when they fold down over the front, they'll have some detailing down over the front of our stone. So what I tend to do first is just slip your flat nose down in between the two and just bend it off to the side. Just gets a nice sharp bend in the wire for you in the right place. Like so, there we go. And then we have to decide, and the best way to do it is to take your focal stone, flip your frame so that now that your wires will come down in front of it, and you can start designing how you want these to go. And you can do anything you like. So I think what we'll do is, for this job I tend to use a ring mandrel, and probably should mention that at the beginning. Ring mandrel, pop the stone to one side, and I'll just pop it in the centre of these two wires. To begin with, I'm just going to make it up, bend these two as we go, and it'll get them somewhere near the same. Just keep going until roughly matches the other side. So we can start off with something like that. Very good. Remember, keep bringing it back to your stone, because you've got to remember the length of these wires. I've done it a million times. You get so focused on designing these wires and doing something really lovely, and then you've hammered them and filed them and you put them up here and they're hanging down here somewhere and they're way too big for the design. So do keep tabs on how far that's going down. And I think then next what we can do is grab our Sharpie, and we can mark here where we'd like to make the next bend in our design. So roughly I'm going to choose here, and then what we'll do is we'll get our little cutting board with our measurements on, and lining it up, bring you to the middle where you can see, lining it up with one of those, we want to get that all lined. Just bring the other wire so it is matching the other side. Okay. And we want to mark it the same. So let's go for there. So we've got a spot in either place. And I'll just come in with chain nose. I'll just place it. Now these chain nose, I don't know if everybody's are the same, but they have a larger jaw and a smaller jaw. This side's the larger side, that side is the smaller side. I tend to place it so that the jaw where I'm going to be bending the wire against, the smaller jaw is in that way. So the smaller jaw is on this outside. It just means you can get a slightly tighter curve in your wire doing it that way. Because if that little piece there is full of plier jaws, you can't bend the wire. So just go ahead and do the same on this side. Get the small side of the pliers. So I'm twizzling around here trying to find the best way to work so that I'm not going to bash the camera. A bit trickier than I thought it would be. There we go. Come in with your flat nose. Get those nice and flat. go back to your crafting mat. This is where we want it. We use the mat to start measuring. Everything lines up. So that's looking pretty good, and even the degree at which these are bent, they need to match either side. So this is where the mat's really handy, because you can see we've bent here, and it goes up through 2 squares and meets on that corner, and the same this side, goes up through 2 squares and meets up in that corner, so we know that looks exactly the same. Bring in our stone again, so that's how it's going to start looking. And then I think what I'll do is we'll just probably put a bend, a bump in here, and then flare it out at the end. So again, come back in with your ring mandrel. Now this one is tapered, so it means that we can do little small bends here and something a bit larger as we work down. I'll go for some here and just bend both sides around. Oh, looking about right there. That side probably needs a little bit more. And if you need to reposition, all you need to do is run that down until the side that you're happier with fits. You know you're back in the right place again. And I'm just going to push that down a bit further. And I think that'll be about right. Somewhere near. Just bring this side up a little bit to match. Bring it in against your stone. So that's where we're going with it. And then I'll just get my round nose pliers, or even your chain nose, and you just grip the end and just roll it out. I'll show you what I mean. So as I didn't show you round nose at the beginning, I'll just do it with my chain nose and just roll the wire out like that. So it just gives you a little bit of shape, and we'll do the same with the other side. Roll it out. Now if I get rid of this in a minute, it's busy. There you go. Rolled the ends out, flatten those down, give you some detailing. So what we need to do next is bring our craft mat back. Just lay this down and take some time just to see how that looks. And that looks pretty good. Probably need a little bit more of a curve on this one, just to get it right. And what I will do now is just offer it up to the stone again. Now here's where I was saying it gets longer. So we probably need to roll that round quite a lot further. So what I will do first off is I'll just trim the bottoms of these off so that we've got a bit less to be working against. And we'll just roll this around again, like so, and see where that takes us. A bit tighter. Offer it up to our stone. It's looking a bit better. Still got a bit to play with there though. I'm actually going to trim that down again. See, it just doesn't quite always pan out. But at least we are remembering to check this before we get to the stage of committing and hammering and filing it and then realising it doesn't fit. This is twisting around a bit. Oh, lengthwise, how are we doing? That's much better. Okay. A bit to nip off of there just to even those up. See if it fits. If not, we can adjust. Now you can see the left hand side is just a little bit longer than the right, so we do need to trim that one down a little. But what I will do first, before I do that, sometimes if your design doesn't quite match this point here, then you will lose some of the length. Oh, just the postman at the gate. You will lose some of the length, so there looks to be a little bit more of a curve on that side than here, so we'll just go in there again and just alter that. It's early today actually. Now, of course I've spun that over now, so it's showing on the wrong side. Yeah, it's a little bit longer, so we'll just take a little bit off of there. I hope I haven't gone too far. Pretty good. Let's have a quick look. There we go, I think we're about right there. So now we can hammer. Now we've got two options here, and I've done it both ways. Just move this piece and that. We can choose to file the ends of our wire over now, and just see if I can get the camera in a bit closer for you. No, no. Apologies. There we go. You can file the ends of the wire here now, and then when you hammer them you'll automatically have a dome shape, or you can just go straight to hammering now and we can file that out later. I've done it both ways, doesn't really make a lot of difference, so we can just go straight to hammering and file them afterwards. So we'll just bring in our hammering gear. Now I usually always start with the detailing at the top end here first, and then iron out any changes down towards the end just to get a more even finish. So like I said before, just go easy with your hammering, don't strike too hard, and as you hammer down, brush the hammer the way you want the wire to go and strike. Right, I'll just leave a little delay here so that I can edit out the loud hammering for you folks with special headphones. Spin it round, work on the other side. There we go. Got a nice flare on those. I might just take it a little bit further. So we've worked on our first curve. I tend to leave this point in here and then go straight for the next curve. And remember, you're getting close to your fingers again. Look on the other side. Flatten that down because that is poking into my finger. There we go. And then we'll just work on the ends and really go to town on those. And don't worry that we've got a little bit of uneven dings in there. That's me not being able to hold the hammer straight, trying to do it underneath the camera, because on the other side you can see it's nice and flat and shiny. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see. Obviously hammering has stretched the wire, we'll see where it goes. A little bit long, so what we could do, if we come back in, we could emphasise this bend here a bit, and then be careful, just curve that down a bit. It should shorten the whole thing. Just go careful, because hammered wire, yes, you can adjust it, but it's not overly keen. And of course we can sand any nicks and mistakes out if we need to. Now I think I might have distorted it a little bit up here, so I'll just come back in. Gently tease that back into place. And then if we still got a little bit too much length on the in there, we can file that off in just a second. So let's bring our measuring mat in again and see where we're at with that. That's not too bad. Straighten it up. Not too bad. There we go. So what at this stage, I'll just take my permanent marker. I'm just going to dab a bit on the end there, because I can see that's where I need to take a little bit off of that end piece. So that moves us on to our next stage of filing. So what we need to do, now some people like to keep these ends nice and round, and some people like to create a bit of an angle on them, so we can either keep filing this around here so it's nice and round, or as we file we can remove some of the material in this kind of a fashion. Remove an edge like that, so it creates a little bit more of an angle, I suppose. I do both ways. Sometimes it's a case of how it actually ends up going, not what I want it to do. So, as we're taking some off of there, perhaps we'll go with the angle on this one. Now I do find it a bit easier using a bench peg, but I can't actually move you over to show you that, so I'm just going to do it freehand and hope for the best. Not too bad. And yes, I'll probably get told off for not using my file in the same direction consistently. But it works, it's okay. I haven't invested in mega expensive tools, so I'm not too concerned. You just do a little at a time and just keep comparing it to your other side. too bad. And just take those little burrs off the edge. I'm still zoomed in. Let's take you back out again. There we go. Looking pretty good. We just need to deburr the backs as well. There we go. Alright, looks pretty good. Right. So this is the bit I like, is this next stage. This is where we get to actually put it on our stone and really start to see the piece come together. So take your flat nose pliers, grip the bottom of the bail and just give it a little bend backwards. Okay, so apologies, I did have to cut and re-edit there and start again because I wasn't paying attention and I went and bent the frame the wrong way around. So before we start shaping around our focal stone, make sure you have your frame facing the correct way up, so it's your cut ends here facing up. Remember the smooth side at the back, which will go against the wearer. Take your flat nose pliers, go to the base of the bail wire, just bend out, so it looks like that. Now I forgot to mention bail making pliers earlier, so you can use bail making pliers, you could use a pen, a dowel, anything that's round to bend your bail over. Now with these bail making pliers I go for the middle section because it gives enough of a bend without using up too much of your material. So nice firm grip. Roll your frame over so it looks something a bit like that, and then at this stage just flip up those front two wires, perhaps just coax this up just a little bit. You don't want the opening too large, but there we go, enough. So we're there. Come in with your nylons, close it up a little bit, and pick up these front two wires again, because what we need to do now is make room for our focal stone to sit in and underneath. And what we'll do is we'll spend some time lifting those front ones up, and we'll just profile them so they have a slight curve along this section here to sit over the stone. So just very gently go along and just apply some upward pressure whilst slightly bending, so you'll end up with something. See how it differs from the wire behind. Do the same on the other side. Caught on those braces there. There we go. And then when we get to these ends, just roll them over. This is where I will use round nose pliers. Roll them over just to tuck the ends in nice and neat. Doesn't need to be much. Helps them sit against the stone and stay nicely out of the way. So they don't get caught. You can see there, just bent over nicely, tucked out of the way. So this is where we take our stone, we can start placing it underneath. and getting a feel for how it's going to look. There we are. So as you can see, as I mentioned earlier, we've got a bit of room. Get that in the right place. A bit slippery. There you go, a wheel press down. A bit of room here around the base to be putting extra detailing in, and a little bit at the top. But there is quite a bit of space there at the minute, so we can come in and you can just with your fingers squash that down so it sits a bit more flush against the stone. There we are, it's almost in its own way holding that in. Just see if I can show you guys that. I'm wobbling the camera around there. There we go. So it's holding that quite secure by itself already now, which is quite good. Right, so now we've got to decide what kind of detailing we're going to start putting onto this. Just going to straighten that out a little bit. See, it's just poking us a bit, and it's actually quite annoying. A few folks will find that. It's the little things sometimes that just need a little bit of attention just to get it where you want it. There we go. So now we can start to decide how we're going to fit our components on. So I think it would look quite nice. I think the first thing to do would be to try and get a nice base wire around here. Now, with all of these designs, I mean, obviously you can do whatever you like, but I quite like putting components on that don't necessarily stick to the base frame. They can overhang the edge, and this will start to give the piece its own flair, its own shape. So we can work with lots of different gauges to do this. I'm going to go back to some of that original 1.2, and I don't know, if we take off, again I tend to sort of hold it in the middle, imagine it rolled around, so that'll be there. If I snip that, I'll give that a little measure for you in a sec. We have got approximately just shy of 14 centimetres, and that'll probably give us enough to work with, and probably end up trimming a little bit off the end as well. So if like me you've got some that's been recycled and needs straightening out, just grab your flat nose and your nylons, just run it through. Okay. Roughly find the centre. About there. And for this, I think I'm just going to use flat nose, and we will bend it in half. Now you will find when you do this, it's quite interesting to look at. When you bend it against the plier jaws, you get one side that bends really nicely here against the actual plier, and one side that's a bit rounded. So you need to come in and give it a little squeeze and straighten it up. Or alternatively, flip it over to the side, squeeze that side and just bend it in. And that should get that nicely there for you. And I think what we'll do is we'll have it go in something like this, and then we'll shape it around cabochon. So I'm just going to bend the bottom out. Just go against your nail with that. Try and get both sides the same. Again, take your time, there's no rush. I'll lay it like that. And again, I really do emphasise just making sure as you go, have a little look against your lines. That looks pretty good. And keep it all the same as you go, otherwise it just makes it harder to correct later on. Get your ring mandrel. I think we'll put a bend here. I do love soft annealed copper. It's so easy to work with. Come back in with our line. Isn't that? So I need to flare that out a little bit more, so perhaps we'll just move that up the mandrel a bit further, curve a bit wider, right down there, the biggest end actually. How's that looking? Yeah, around a bit tighter, I think. Yeah, and I think by the time we hammer that out, that's going to flare out. I may just also open up that a little there, make it wider again. There we go. And I think I will just take these outside wires, and I'll just roll them outwards. So basically it'll go up and around and out the side. And the easiest way to do that will be to, again, get your mandrel and just roll your wire around the side. Keep your thumb in the same place, because then you'll know you'll be using the same measurement for each side. Now it's going to be a little bit off-putting because if you don't roll it in the same place, it won't do the same. So we'll put it back on our measuring mat here again so we can see it's not too bad. It's not very smooth here, so I'm going to put it on the mandrel and just smooth that out, otherwise it will show up. Okay. Flatten it all down nice. Line it up and see where we're at. So I can see that's quite ways off at the moment. We've got far more of a flare here than we have this side. So if we offer it up, we can choose which side we're going to alter. Now I quite like it flared out a bit more on that side, so I think I'll try and get this side to match that side. So I'll get our mandrel. Right down the end there again. And then roll out. Something like that. That's looking a bit better. Move it up for you. Not looking bad, looks like it's matching up. Yeah, I think we'll go with that. So if I offer it up now to our piece, it's going to end up looking something like that when it's placed. So we can, just to get rid of some of the excess wire, roughly start trimming down what we don't think we're going to need. So I reckon if we take off about there, just don't forget again, by the time we've hammered, the wire's going to stretch. We may even take some more off. So we'll go back to our board again, line up, and we'll just mark the same on the other side. Okay. Trim off the excess. Go. So I will just hammer this now. I won't put you folks through that again. I'll start at the point, bring that one, work on that, exaggerate these edges here, and then I will go straight to the top, and I will meet you back once I've done that. Okay, so I have finished shaping and hammering and filing this piece. So we'll just check for fit in a sec, but I just wanted to show you a bit up close. There we go. So we worked on flaring these edges out here, working on the point and hammering out and filing pieces on the top. I did have to trim a fair bit off the top here, so don't get too concerned about that. You have to do it. So now we'll just offer it up to the main piece. The best way to get it to fit, because you've got the narrow opening here at the top, place that down over the bail underneath those top wires, and then bring it down. And what I did also do, just to try and help get things to line up, is I did just put a little centre mark here on my frame, measured it up so that we could see. That helps just to get things in the right place. And also, this is where it's really handy, where we worked on getting those straps level at the back, you can now use those as a guide to get in your further attachments in the right place. So because we spent some time getting that right, we can now use that to get nice accurate placements of the extra pieces we add on. So that's where we're at now. As we can see, just the change in adding that piece is really starting to give it some shape now. So now we've got to work out how we're going to attach this component to the base frame. I do it lots of different ways, but I think what we'll do is probably get some 1mm wire, and we'll shape it so that we'll bend it, we'll have a straight here, and we'll follow the contour of this and we'll weave it onto the frame, and then the ends here we can attach onto the frame to secure it in place. And we'll put some weaves down here as well, and we'll perhaps use that weaving wire to attach it to the frame at the base here. So let's grab some 1mm wire. Again, whoops, sorry for moving the camera there. I've had to put it on charge and I've now got a cable unexpectedly hanging down, which I didn't really want, but there we go. During that little break, actually my phone did completely give up the ghost, so it actually gave me the opportunity to pop it on charge and go and grab some lunch, which I'm sure all of you're the same as me, all us crafters are absolutely terrible at looking after yourselves when you get involved in making. So it forced me to go and have some lunch, which is a good thing. Now I've just taken a random piece here, and it is 18 centimeters long. So we'll go for the middle at 9. I'm just going to take those flat nose pliers and bend it in half. Like so. There we are, so we end up with something like that. I'll just move that out of the way. So we've now got that bent in half. Give it a nice squeeze, get it nicely together. And if we remove this component back off of here, I'm going to place it, so I'll hammer the bottom and it will sit like this, and then follow the contour of this as it goes around. So we'll just gently prise that open a little bit. Like that. Somewhere near the same. There we go. So it will start to sit there like that. And I think what we'll do is we'll use the ring mandrel to get the basic shape on the inside again. Something like that. We'll just roll it around. Just to get us in the right direction. And then we can, as you can see, that is way too big at the moment. Just pull that in. It's a bit skew with. Oh, I'll cut that wire again, that's going to be really annoying. Something a bit like that. And I think what we'll do is we'll start weaving it on, excuse me, and we can manipulate it where we need it as we go, which won't be too difficult. So just a little out there, and then we'll do the same on the side. If you can hear muttering in the background, I apologise, my neighbour's got builders in at the moment. And they're a bit chatty. It's usually completely quiet here, and it had to be today of all days that they start making all their racket outside. Hopefully a bit of music on here will help to disguise that. Right. There we go. So that's starting to line up like there. So as we are going to be attaching the bottom half of this to the frame, I will be using the thicker of my two weaving wires, and I'm going to go through the 0.4. It's a bit sturdier. But first off, as we said before, just going to hammer this little detail on the bottom because it just gives it a bit of strength and adds a bit of hammered detail to our design. So rather than moving the block over to you guys, I'll just quickly whiz over here and do that. There we go. Let's just flatten that out a little bit. That'll sit on there quite nicely. Just double check before we go getting too involved. That should sit on there. Yeah, that'll work. And that's starting to take some extra shape there. So yeah, we'll weave that on. So we'll just take a length. We're not going to need very much. And I'll just, so you can see how much I've got, is approximately 21 centimetres. Does not have to be exact, just want to emphasise that, because I probably won't use all of that. So I think the easiest way to get it started would be to start binding it onto a smaller one. Now, rather than trying to poke it down through the middle all the time, you can just come up through these two and take it through the centre. Now, I typically like to start binding on at least 3 or 4 turns. That's 2, 3, let's go 4, just so we know it's really secure that way. So we've got it on 4 turns. here. Get it down to the bottom there. So now we are together on there. Now I'll just bring it in. Hopefully help to see what we're doing. So we've gone 4 times around there. Hold on to your little tail. I was going to try and spin. Go around the main frame. Let's go 3 times. It's usually quite a good number to go with. Push everything into place. So we've gone 4 and then 3. Then we'll come back up behind. So and go once. Twice. 3 times. 4. How's that looking? 4. And then perhaps we'll go 3 times around the frame again. Just keep everything nice and snug. Push it down with your pliers. There we go. I'll just come back out. There we go. A bit more focus. Keep this aligned in the centre. So we've gone 4, 3, 4, 3, and this is where now we can just bring this wire around to follow the shape of our piece that we're going to attach. And then just to finish it off, we'll just go around there. Nudge down. And I'll just go around here 3 times and that'll be plenty. I'll just bring it up through there. So that means that once we've got it all centered and lined up, so now we've got these lovely little tails, and rather than trying to trim them, if you just give them a little wiggle, eventually they'll come off nice and flush and there's no sharp raggedy bits. You can do the same here on this side. There we go. So that's that bit done. Now all I need to do is just get hold of this wire and just curve it around to follow there. And that means, I'll show you in a minute once I've got this one out of the way. So I'll just go ahead, weave this one up exactly the same as the other side. And then this time around, over the frame. I'll bring that down a bit closer. 1, 2, 3. A little cinch with the pliers. And then it was 4, wasn't it? That's in there. So that's 1, 2. Push it down. 3, 4, and then you hear that? I do have a railway at the end of my garden. Don't usually toot their horn. Typical as I'm filming, but there we go. All part of the fun, I guess. And then we'll go around 3 times to finish off. One, 2, and 3. That was right, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now we just shape this round there, like the other side. There we go. Right, now let's just make sure we've got these in the right place to match the side. Pushing it down a little bit just to make sure it matches the other side, otherwise if it's too far off that'll look rubbish. Now we need to get rid of our tails. Give a little wiggle like we did before. 1 and 2. There, so that's that component made. Just have a quick closer look at that. Okay. Ready to put in place. Just notice those weaves are a little off. And sometimes if this bends up a little, just pull it down, give it a little bit of profile. Doesn't have to be much, just enough. Okay, right, let's try and place this onto our piece. So now that we've moved these two in the same direction, wiggle those on, slide it down into position, lining up that centre mark on the frame. And that's how that's starting to look. So now we will just use, holding that in place, this is where it gets a little bit fiddly, but you don't have to do the whole thing in one manoeuvre, so don't panic. We've got to bind these off onto the frame just up here, so if you can just hold one side and just partially tie it off. I've got a bit much there, so I'm just going to trim that down. Grab the end and just pop it in behind, and we're going to go, I zoom in for you, in this little space here, and right around the frame wire. Best way to hold it. Excuse me while I just shift it around just so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. We'll just have it poking out the other side. We'll just get the other side going as well. Trim that bit off because we did on the other side. Bring it around through the back. And rather than trying to poke through on the very end, you can just, now we've got this curve going here, you can just grab hold of it here and just feed it through that way. And that'll start to get your tail ends through so that you can pick them up. And just work them through a little at a time on each side. And that way you can gradually tighten it down. Just take your back out so you're not too close. Okay. And just keep centering up with that bottom line. Should get me somewhere near. And as you can see, these have gone a little bit off, so that looks like it needs to go that way, and then feed it through, and just keep playing about with it until it sits where you need it. Oops. It is a little bit fiddly, but don't worry. Now I've noticed here, you can see this one's got, it's curving nicely, but this one's disappearing off a little bit, so it just needs a little bit of encouragement to come back. So you can come in this side and effectively push the wire back, because we haven't tightened it down yet. Push the wire back, and you notice it's just showing up again here, again nicely. So that's why you just take your time. You can adjust things and put them back where they need to be. Now, probably best if I come and cinch it this way around. And we've got enough to tighten it off and tuck a tail away. Maybe I didn't weave up here, but then we don't need to, do we, if it's bound down? So here we go. There we go, getting that. Cinch that down. Nearly done. Yep. Now this side, we're ready for trimming, so we just trim off enough here. We have to take a bit more off in a sec, see how we get on. Just to tighten it around the frame. Yeah, we'll just take a little bit more off there. There we go. Tighten that in, around, out of the way. There we are. So that one's bound down, out of the way. Not going to catch on anyone's clothing or skin. And this one's pretty good. Yep. Come in here with adjustment. Bring it around a little bit tighter. Yep. excess that we don't need. Probably might just take a tiny bit more off there. There we go. Cinch it in around. There we go. Right. You can see that little piece has disappeared there again. So it just means we need to go back in from this side and just give it a little push here, and that will encourage it back across where we want it to be. So we can just gently go in here, push it down. Don't want to squeeze it too hard or be too rough with it, because it will distort it and put dings in the wire. And that looks to have brought it back just about right, I think. So if I can just bring that in, there we go. There. So now we've got to decide what the next piece is that we're going to hang on. So that's got quite a good bit of shape going to that piece. And again, just come in, keep everything where it needs to be, centre that little piece up again there. There we go. Right, another good reference point is with having those bindings down there. It was unintentional. Actually, I should have used the tail ends there. Shouldn't have to tie them. We can do some little beading with that. But these little ends here are finishing nicely at the same point as these bindings. So it's all nice and symmetrical. So what we'll do is where I took those tail ends off of there, we can maybe add some beads in there and bind it. One other element. We can do something with it. Okay, so next, for the next piece of detailing and component to go on, just having a quick look at the design as it's come along so far. I think what we'll do is these downward pieces here, we could just, at this point, just bend them out a little bit. And just be careful not so your pliers don't slip and scratch. Not the end of the world if it does, but like that. Just saves you a job then having to polish out scratches. Just move them to the outside a little bit more. It's not covering too much of the stone. Get it to match up to the other side. That's about right. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll get another piece of 1mm, do the same again here, and perhaps take it underneath the ends of these element here, through here, poke it down. So just grab another piece of 1mm. Oh, caught that charger again. Oops. My apologies. Right. Just straighten this out. Now this is, again, randomly cut off, but for the sake of the video, 1mm at 15 centimeters. So take it halfway, just bend it over, halfway again. Whoopsie. Get it squeezed together nicely. All along. There we go. And then we'll just, as before, gently open it out a little. It's just twisting there, so just need to catch that before it goes too far. Go. So that will sit on there. And bend it around like that. And like that. So that it matches with the element that we already had on there. And what we'll do is we'll hammer that bottom piece again for strength. So I'll just nip over here and do that. There we go. So that's now hammered. And need to match up that curve. Not quite right. To the other side. Right. And what we'll do is we'll be offering that into there. So it gives a nice layered look. And then it can sit underneath the two downward pieces. So we'll just tighten this curve in a bit further on both sides. Quite sure we ended up with a kink there, but we have, so we'll just grab it now quickly. Get it somewhere near, which is about there. And we'll just at this stage roughly mark out where we're going to have the wires go down through. So we've got room to pop them down through into this section here. So I'm going to get the permanent marker, mark about there, then we'll go back to our crafting board, line up, so that's about right, and same that side, 1, 2. And then place your pliers behind the mark, just a little like that, so that it's a bit of a space. And we'll just bend that wire down, straighten it out. So basically you've got a right angle on there now. And that one. And then what we'll do, just straighten that kink out. The idea is we'll pop it down here and here like so. That. As we do so, we'll just lift up those two little downward pieces and just tease it underneath like that side. Oops, not got it out again. One. And 2. Just underneath. Push it up to fit. There we go. So that is now in. Push it down too far, be too keen. There. Now if we push back from behind again just raises this here enough so that when we start to bind it onto the frame, it's got a little bit of wiggle room. Just going to pull this curve out a little bit. Quite where I want it. Push that out. It's a bit towards the front as well. There we go. Right, now rather than pulling on this to bind it to the frame, I'm just going to get my pliers. I'm just going to bend like so. Just gently encourage it round to the front. I thought it would be quite nice if, as we do that, actually now that it's bent, we can just bend this. Like that. You can just sit underneath that little detail just there. Make sure you keep it in the centre, because you'll quite quickly start moving out of place. Go. That's one side. And then we've got room to then bind it off onto the frame here somewhere. So keeping it down so this piece is still in the middle, nice and centered. Just gently encourage that. Little squeeze. There we go. In the right place. Take this end. And don't worry if this moves a little bit while you're doing it, because we can always pop it back. Give it a little bend on the end now, because that will help us when it comes to threading it through this space to be poking out in the right place when we need to get hold of it. Feed it through. Grab hold of it. And just pull. It's a bit tricky. Don't be afraid to put some pressure on. And just tighten it up. Now, as you can see, it's quite close into this join here, so what we'll do, we'll just lift this up and out, and then we want to trim it just at this point here, and then we'll be able to tuck it back in underneath. Okay, so get right in there with your cutters like that. It's got a little tail, and cinch it right down. And if you come from this side, whoops, off camera, apologies, you can just cinch it back in. I'll just trim a little bit more off of there actually. Not quite where I wanted it. Maybe I've got to get it under. I hope you'll be able to do the side a bit better. There we are, a bit better for you. So it means now that we've tucked that cut end in underneath the top wire. Let's just bring this back down to the centre again. There we go. And then we can come in with our nylon jaws and just cinch it down. So that's one side. I'll come back out. I'll to the other side. So push forward. Let's get this centre back into the middle. Underneath our little arm. Keep that where we need it to be. Being a little bit of a nuisance. There we go. Right. So we just need to bend it with the pliers at this point, like so. Match to the side. Bring it up. Curve. Like that. Starting to match to the side. Encourage it in underneath. Don't forget, you can just give it a little cinch with your pliers. And then we'll just use this tail end to rotate round. Don't forget, put a little emphasis on the end of that curve because it will really help you thread it through the frame. Like so. Bring it through that little gap. Oops, get rid of that. Right through the bottom there. And tease it through. Hold that tail. There we are. Bring it through. Try not to lose the curve on that piece like I nearly did. Just bring it back out for a sec. Bring that back through. Keep working it through gently. You can even squeeze it through. There. There we go. Right, now cut this tail off in as close as you can get, like that, and then just pop it inside there so it's now in and underneath that wire on the top. That means it's tucked away where you can't see it. And just come in like that. Give it a little squash with your nylon jaws. And with a bit of luck, it's looking something like the other side. Which I think it is. Just want to give it a little bit more of a squeeze to get it to match the other side. There we go. And this side. This one's got a bit of a steep angle on it, so I'm just going to bring that up a little bit. There we go. And then, yeah. those to match up nicely. Again, that middle end being a bit naughty, keeps moving, but we'll get that secure in a minute when we get a bead on there, so that'll be fine. And so far, that is where we're at. Starting to look okay. Okay, so next stage now, I think we'll go back to securing this bottom end down here, because I went and cut off the tails on the weaving wire, which I wasn't planning on originally doing, but it's okay. We can use some 0.4 weaving wire and some of those little beads which I mentioned earlier. We can put them across the bottom, and we just give all of these little details just a little push down into place, and we can secure them onto the frame at the back. So no specific length, just cut a little piece of the 0.4, and just for the sake of seeing what we've got, just give that a little measure, approximately 15 centimetres. And just having a little look here, I think the 3mm beads will probably fit quite well into that, whoops, gap. Just have a quick look. Yeah, that should sit there quite nicely. So I'll pop this on. I usually find it a little easier just to fold the wire in half. Get you off to a good start. And I think with this one we are going to, I'll just zoom in. We'll aim for getting the bead to sit just here and thread down through here on the other side, and see if we can get that secured down nicely. So let's aim for getting the wire down to there and there. And seated like so. Remember, get everything just lined up nicely where you need it. And I think what we'll do, I think we've got just enough room. Yeah, just try and zoom in and show you. We'll go around the frame at the bottom and try and come back up through in between here and here, so that we can wrap around there and make sure that's all nice and secure as well. We'll see how we go. Now, if we grab this tail end here and just put a little curve on the end, that will help us to thread it through if it will go. But being a larger gauge, it may take a little bit of encouragement. We'll see. If I can get that up through. If not, we'll think of a different way of doing it. It's come up through there, but that's not where I want it. It might be easier sometimes if you just create a little gap. Don't be afraid of opening up gaps, because you can always close them down again. There we go. That's come where we wanted it. So it's come around the frame at the bottom. I'll just take it around there. Down through the frame again. Pull it down through, and actually fits in quite nicely, because it looks like it follows on from these weaves that we placed earlier. So that looks good. We'll do the same on the other side, so I come out of frame there. Around the base frame at the bottom, we'll just open up that gap between this piece and this piece again, just a little, so we can get our weaving wire up through there. And I'm just going to put a little curl on the end of here as before. Nope, it's the wrong place. Go up through there, we go. can see it's come out exactly where we want it, just between those two. Between there and there. Let's get hold of that little tail before it disappears again. And it's going to shoot away. Let's hold the bottom. There we go, got it. And we'll just pull that onto the frame. And we'll just take it back around as we did with the side, down through here, under the frame, base frame at the back, and through. Just get hold of that little tail and bring it down. Make sure it doesn't skip in front of there like that. There we go. Gently tighten it down. You don't want to wiggle it around too much because you'll end up snapping the wire. That has secured nicely this top wire here, which we placed, and this one is bound around here because these two are joined together from the previous weave that we did onto the main frame at the bottom, which is great. And a little tiny adjustment if you want to or need to. Straighten that bead up, and then we'll just go around the base frame at the bottom a few times just to secure that wire in place, like that. We'll go around one more time on each side, and there we go. Just cinch it round with your pliers. That side. And do the same with this one. Under the base frame. And that tail, go around one more time. There we go. And just to make it look tidy, just group them together like that. And again, cinch it around, give them a little squeeze, check from the front before we trim them off. Again, give it a little wiggle, there we go, and as before, just give them a little wiggle around like that and they'll come off nice and flush and there'll be absolutely no sharp edges on the back. Cause damage to anybody's clothes or injuries, so we don't need that. So there's one little bead down there on the front, all set up. Now I did notice as we were building this we were getting quite a nice little gap here for some detailing. Obviously not realising that was going to happen as we go through this build, so I had a quick look through my bead stash, and I've got a huge stash and I've never used them. So I found some carnelian beads. Obviously you can put whatever you like, but I thought just for the sake of demonstrating, pop this on here. I thought maybe a carnelian bead would look quite nice in there. You could put whatever you like, it doesn't have to be carnelian. Now your space may differ slightly, but the size of this bead, let's have a quick look, is about, I'd say 6mm in diameter. Just pick something that fits. So we'll work on trying to get that one placed next. I had a quick look, and if we thread the wire underneath without any support on the back, the bead's going to disappear down into that little space, and it would look okay, but I'd like it a bit nearer the front. So we'll pop the bead back in here. What I thought we could do is, it's quite nice sometimes to put some detailing on the bail at the top. So we could get maybe a piece of 1mm fold it in half, bring it down here and flare it, and it would mirror this detailing down the bottom here nicely. And then we can pop it down through the back, and I'm thinking perhaps secure it on these cross pieces that we've got here. So let's grab a piece of enamel. Doesn't need to be very long. I have got here approximately, if we could straighten it out, let's see what we've got, about 9 centimetres, just over. We won't need all that, I don't think. Just going to straighten it out as before. Flat nose and nylon jaws. Oops. And if we take approximately the middle, somewhere there, fold it in half. There's one side so you can see. A little squeeze, tighten it down. And what I'll do now is I'll just hammer this, give it some strength. There we go. That's that there. And this will sit on the bail here. If we just, might be easier just to hold on to that. Just flare it out ever so slightly. And this will just give somewhere for the bead to sit so it doesn't sink down into the design. Right, let's flatten that out and see what that might look like. Okay, so it's going to go there. Doesn't need to be quite so wide. Fill that up again, see what we've got. Yeah, that will probably work quite well. Go. So we'll pop it on there, and we'll just get a Sharpie. And I reckon if we mark it, you can just see in the back there we've got the bracing wire at the back. I reckon somewhere about there. Get my crafting board, take it back out so you can see. There we go. Okay, line that mark up there. Go, one either side. Like we've done before, just come behind the mark, bend your wire down so you've got a 90-degree angle. Same that side. Okay, try and get them the same, otherwise it will end up going off at a bit of a slant. So what we'll do, hoping, if we aim for poking the wires down this side and this side of the cab, and we should be able to then tie off around the back. So pop the wires down through. Actually, before we do that, I think what we'll do is we'll just Notice the contour of the bail, it turns up ever so slightly there, so I'll just roll with some bail making pliers that detail ever so slightly, and we'll adjust it again if we need to. Let's see how that sits. Put that down through there. Yeah, it's looking pretty good, but being fussy I can see that this curve here is just not quite right, so I'm just going to go in. I think maybe adjust that side to match. That's better. Okay, let's go again. Okay, and like before, just take it slowly, there's no rush, just to try and get the piece to stay where we want it. So it sits now on the bail at the top. We've got the 2 prongs sticking out the back, just there. And the idea is to wrap it around that bracing bar and secure it so that it's straight, and it'll just give somewhere for that bead to sit so it doesn't sink back into the design. So we've got too much length here, so we can just trim that down. And I'm thinking perhaps we can always take a bit off. We don't need to take it all off at once. And find we've made our wires too short. Just grab that there, bring it around. I think that will probably be okay. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Just give that a little cinch. Now I'll try bringing it a bit closer so you can see, and hopefully it won't be too close, it makes it impossible. And I'll just trim this one down while we're here as well. Like so, I don't know if you can see that. Okay. I'll just take a little more off. A little bit fiddly, but it will go. She says. Let's try a different pair of pliers. Go in with some chain nose and see if that helps. To the curve bent round, back in with the bent nose, that side. Now it's a bit skew here, let's just put it back up. It's fine. I think what we'll do, as you can see, this side is coming down a bit further than the other, so that's okay. It's because this wire is not trimmed quite as short as the other side, so we'll just gently put it back out. Make sure we've got this where we want it. Something like that. Trim a bit more of that off. Put it up. Okay, still got too much on there. Try that. Chain nose worked quite well on the other side. There we go. Right, let's see how it's looking. Now, don't fret too much. Just give it a little pull forward. There we go. We can always secure that in, secure that in place. Yeah, I think that'll be okay. Just try and get in there and just cinch those wires down a little bit and stop it moving quite so much. Once the bead is strapped down on top of it, and then we'll put something across here and stop it from moving. There we go, right. Right, so now this is what we've got. We've got our wire, which until we fix it in place is just moving on us a little bit, but that's okay. And it'll just give the base for the bead to sit. So I think what we'll do, perhaps we'll pop the bead in first. So let's get some of the 0.4, just a small length. I haven't got much here, so I pop it. Again, probably won't use all of this. But again, it's about 15 centimeters. Take a carnelian bead. Thread that on. Okay. So, what I'm going to aim to do is thread our weaving wire down either side of this new brace that we've just put in, and then wind it around the frame here at the back. So sometimes it's easier just to put one side in and the other, which actually by chance helps if you trim one side shorter than the other, because it means you can turn it and get it into position. There we go. That holds our bead in there nicely and it adds a bit of detailing. Now at this point I also wanted to mention, because I was thinking as I was building this, because these pieces have quite a lot of elements added to them, you start to think, God, it's looking a bit messy, there's lots of wires. And while I always oxidize my pieces, and the transformation, once you get that contrast, really makes the world of difference. So don't start thinking, oh, we're piling loads of wires on, it's looking a bit of a mess. Crack on, get those wires on there, pile them up, I say. That's what I like to do. And once you oxidize, and then you get your highlights, polish all your high points, and you get the depths and contrast, it really does look so good afterwards. So don't worry if you're thinking it's looking like a bit of a jumble. Keep going, trust the process. Pull that down through the back. So I've got our bead in place. Just try and pull this across here. Yep. And I'll probably wind it around about 3 times, get it nice and secure. Two, and 3. And you can get in there and just give it a little cinch. So I'll do it 2 more times this side. That's 2. That's 3. Oh, no it's not, I missed. Let's try again. And 3. Yes, we know that that's not going to shift because it's nice and secure. Okay, so from the back, this is what we're looking at. 3 times around the frame. Just as I always do, just cinch it down. It tightens it around that hammered rectangular profile of the wire, just to get it nice and secure. I'll just do the usual, wiggle it off. Go for a double check. Yep, nice and clean. Okay. Alright. Now that side profile there, that's absolutely fine. You can, if you want to, pop your pliers in and perhaps just give it a little bit of a bend. Like that. Go in from both sides because you'll find one side will bend a bit better than the other. Just to even it up. There we go. So now it looks like that. And I'm thinking, because we had some of those rice beads from earlier, I wonder if one of those above on top would look quite nice. Sort of sitting up there. Let's offer it up and see. You don't have to commit. And a little piece of weaving wire. Perhaps not. Maybe not one of these ones. Let's try a small round one. This is 2 mil, I think. Oh, that's quite a nice little detail. Right, I think we'll pop that in there. So, just bring it back out. Now, what I'm going to try and do with this one is put our weaving wire down either side of this veil detail, come around the downward arms and then onto the frame at the back, because that will help hold everything in place. And on one side, actually let's put, we need to come around those arms, a little curl on the ends, because that will help us get underneath. You'll see what I mean. Like that. Need to get under that arm. That's it. And that on. Of course, we move on either side. There we go. Bring the wire over the top. Encourage the bead into place. There we go. Now if we go around that arm completely, and as we go around, just go down to the frame, out back, just like so, and then around the frame. Just ties it all off nicely. I've done that once, so we'll do the same this side. Go around the little arm, down through the frame at the back. Around the frame. If we do too many weaves, just make sure that's in the right place. I think that looks okay. There we go. So we'll just finish off now by doing a couple of turns around the frame. Make sure the bead's in the right place. Sorry for all the zooming in and out. Probably when it gets a bit fiddly, that's the only way to show you. Be able to see what's going on. So twice around that frame. that side. And the same here. One. And just try and make sure that you're not overlapping the turns. Keep it nice and neat. Catch the little tail as it comes up the side. There we go. Push those ones down as well. Get them all together. Cinch them down. Take off our tails. Okay. Yeah, that looks quite nice. Okay, so we're nearly at completion of this piece. The only last little job which needs to be done is these downward arms are not secured down yet, and if we just pop those under there, you can see they're still just a little bit flappy and could easily get caught on clothing, etc., and then just be buckled out of the way. So what we want to do is we need to try and get some weaving wire, I think, down at the bottom portion of the arm, and we have got the option of using the frame and these back straps to bind off those tails. So I would think, if I can just zoom in for you, we've got the choice of going between 0.4 and the 3. Now, given that the space is quite tight, I think I might actually go for the 3 and see what we can get in there. Now, just again, I've got about 15 centimeters. Now, this might take a little bit of encouragement because it is a tight little space, but the aim is to get under this arm. If we look carefully, you can see that there is just the tiniest little bit of gap where you can, there we are, see through there, and it will go through to the back. And once you've found that little gap there to put the wire through, you'll be able to just sort of gently tease it down to where we want it. So I'm going to aim for that little gap, and we're going to probably use that bottom strap there. So there we go. Quite like it really to come out at the bottom of the frame if I can. Don't think it's going to, it doesn't matter. So it's now come out here. So we can tie this side off onto the frame. Now it's these little bits that sometimes take the longest to do. Just very gently encourage it through the gap there. And that has come around the frame nicely. We'll do about 3 or 4 times, we'll see how it feels as we go. If the wire starts to get a little bit distorted, just smooth it out. There we go. That's 3 times, smooth again. No, 2 times rather, 3 times coming round. There we go, so that's 3 times bound that way. And we need to sort of have this here and come down, ideally between here and here if we can. I mean, if it goes through there, let's have a look, see what it looks like. That might look okay, I mean, I don't need to worry about it too much. You know what, I think that will probably be okay. Let's compare it if we can get it down the other way. I don't want to fiddle with it too much because again it will work hard and risk snapping off. We might be able to get it under this 1mm that we placed earlier. It may not want to know at all. Oh, it did. There we go. So it's gone down through between that 1mm. Now the next challenge is going to be try and get hold of the tail this side. which is doing okay. Now it's coming down. I did want it to come down the other side of the frame, but we'll work with it. So there we go. It's holding that down now. I'd quite like to use this back frame here just to secure it. So we'll come round a few times there and just use your finger just to encourage that and stop it springing back so you can't get hold of it. Around there. Let's move this tail out of the way because we don't need that now. There again. Oops. Right, didn't snap. And through there again. Can always come here. It's a little bit looser. So there's that. 2 times. And 3. And then we just get our nylon jaws, just flatten that down. And there's just a little delicate placement there which stops that detail from lifting up. Yeah, I think that works okay. So the next job then would be to just take these tails off by wiggling. There we go. Sharp edges. Awesome. I think it's worked quite well. So I'll just see if I can do the other side. So it's 0.3. A short piece of that. So again, let's find the see-through bit down through there, which we can. Let's come out nicely, exactly the same as this side, between the detailing and the frame. And we bound it around this side of that strap. So we'll match it the other side, because although it's the back, you still want it to look good. So let's just take this down there. 1, 2, 3 times. Go. And then this side was to aim to get it underneath this wire, which I think would be a little easier this side, and then get it to come out around that bottom strap down here. So down through there. Look at that. Excellent. Come through nicely. Turn the piece over. Just put a little bit of a curve on the end there so it turns up and you can catch it. There we go. And actually sometimes it's a good idea to have this weaving wire just a little bit longer, because if it doesn't thread up very well and you start to get chewy ends on here, you can at least snip it off and work with a fresh piece and know that you've got plenty of length still left to work with. And you're not playing wire chicken. See if you're going to run out. Makes the job a bit easier. Go about it that way. There we go. It's 3 times round, just like the other side. Let's wiggle off that end that we don't need. And there. There we go, double check, nice and smooth. Come on with the nylon jaws. Let's give it a little gentle squeeze. And you always hear those horror stories where at the end people are doing the last detailing, put a little bit too much of a squeeze in their pliers and end up fracturing their focal stone, so be careful. There we go. Move all that rubbish out of the way. So I think we've got ourselves quite a nice little piece there. So the last thing to do really is just go over, make little adjustments because things will shift around. Check for any scratches and scrapes. Copper is really good for if you do happen to get any marks you need to polish out. You can get silicon carbide polishing wheels or bullets which will fit onto a rotary tool, and they are absolutely excellent for just quickly whizzing over, and I advise you do it before you oxidize because that way if you take out all the little dings and the scratches it stops the liver of sulphur settling into those scratches and darkening areas that are then harder to polish out. So now's the time to go over, smooth up any little bits, imperfections that you don't like, have a once over, check your wires are where you want them to be. If anything's bugging you, I think it's all looking as we need it to look. And there we go, I hope you enjoyed this. I'll now go and oxidize and polish it, and I'll nip back in just a second and show you, and then we'll do a comparison of how it looks now with just bare wires and how it looks once it's all blackened and polished and got some contrast. And here we have it, one freshly oxidized and polished pendant, a new piece of jewellery. I'll try and say, hold this up here, I'll be able to show you comparison. And it was just bare copper. You can see now it really starts to show the detailing and highlights. Now you can polish this back and take off the black as much as your preference is. Some people like to leave their jewellery a bit blacker, some like to polish it up. Then take most of it away, polish the back as well. And here we are, one sparkly new piece ready for a home. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you could like and subscribe, that would be absolutely brilliant. Help me on this new journey that I've started. It'll enable me to make some more videos and show some more designs for you to try, and new techniques and things that you can do, annealing wire, polishing, all of that sort of thing. Might even do some soldering and bits and pieces. So yeah, like and subscribe, it would be hugely appreciated, and I'll see you soon.